taken over for Lindsay.
Got it.
Okay, and
Okay.
Stan has gracefully, and I am grateful, has agreed to take minutes today. So Stan, thank you so much.
There we are. I'm ready.
You are the man. Deeply appreciated. Just briefly, let's look at Larry's minutes. Larry, those minutes were terrific. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes Larry took last month?
I move we accept as presented.
Okay, moved, seconded. Dave, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you. Larry, great minutes. Really appreciate it. That was a
Thank you.
complicated meeting. Mr. Johnson, is Tony Morgan with us? Chief White, is Tony on the line?
Don't see
He is
him
going to
listed
join-
as an attendee or anything else.
Yeah, no, I'm going to join at 4:30 as an attendee, as a general public attendee.
Okay, at 4:30. Very good. So we'll wait to introduce him at that time, and we'll have a little introduction, and then he'll join us. He's a friend and colleague of Ken Johnson. He's a expert underwriter for fire insurance and other insurances. So he's going to briefly talk to us 5 or 10 minutes today, and we'll do that at 4:30. So on the next topics, we have the Fire Foundation. We're moving ahead. We're going to send out a letter of request for donations, and Len Thompson and I are meeting Friday morning to finalize that letter and send it out. And I expect it'll go out probably the end of November or the first week in December. As an inducement for people, if they donate $100 or more, they'll get one of our brand spanking new challenge coins, which are hot off the press and I haven't even received yet. And they're very cool. So that'll be an inducement. And no crab feed this year. And honestly, just with the crab season the way it is and delayed and global warming, we're going to really have to think long and hard if crab is the right way to go for future fundraisers. It may be, but it's looking more and more problematic, as you've probably read about the delayed crabbing season and such. So we'll talk about next year, but this year, no crab feed, but we're going to have a solicitation letter to go out to try to raise funds. Historic Subcommittee, I have nothing new to add. And in fact, if we go to the commissioners' reports, I really don't have anything for the Fire Commission today myself. So I'm going to go right to Larry Luckham. Larry.
Okay.
Anything? Yeah.
Well, a couple of things on my agenda for today. I don't know if other people track this or not, but the rainfall to date, this is measured from 7/1 to 11/9, 22.64 inches against an average of 5.12. So our rainfall this year is looking really good. The Marin County reservoirs as of 11/9 were at 54.71% of capacity. Now that's against an average of 66.15%. So we're a bit behind on storage, and that's likely the result of the prolonged drought and the drawdown in the reservoirs, which was pretty severe. The water restrictions are still in force, however, and I'm guessing that they will remain in force until the reservoirs hit at least the annual average. And if we get a couple more of the heavy rainfalls, they'll hit 100% relatively soon. So that's, I think, on the good note. The other thing I'd like to point out, for those of you who don't know, this is November 10th, and November 10th, 1975 was the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, a 17,000 ton iron ore carrier on Lake Superior that cost 29 lives. For anybody who's ever been to sea on big ships, you would remember the date. And I've been to sea on big ships, including some pretty close to the size of that one. In fact, I've been at the helm of a ship almost that size. And in a big storm, it's a significant and scary as hell event. So the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, memorialized in song, as a matter of fact, by Glenn Yarber, I think. That's all I've got.
Larry, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Tom, anything you'd like to share with the commission today?
A couple of things. One, it is Native American Heritage Month, just FYI. But I received a citizen inquiry regarding the red curbing. Apparently in front of his house, the fire department decided to make his whole curb red.
Ooh,
And he wasn't happy about it because now he can't park his car in front of his house. I suggested he call Chief White directly and because I don't know how the process works. But if Chief White, if you could fill us in on who decides when a curb gets painted red and how does a citizen go about challenging that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
okay. Chief White?
Okay. Well, I believe I've reported anyway on some of our parking box efforts that are underway right now in the community. And so given that, you've got a variety of things that you may want to take into consideration as to where a vehicle could obstruct emergency vehicle access. And so whether there's a fire hydrant there, or whether there's some potential disruption to traffic flow, could very well be the reason why that curb was painted red, to ensure that there would be no access or egress challenges. I don't know about this specific instance. This is the first I've heard of it. I know we have been creating parking boxes, but I was not aware of an effort right now to remove existing parking so much as to just delineate where vehicles should park. That may have gone hand in hand. I know Chief Senate, who's actually on the the Zoom with us right now, has had some engagement with staff on those parking box creations. In fact, just earlier today, he was out on some of the streetwise efforts that we're speaking to. So given that, he can certainly reach out to me, but more than likely I'll hand him off to staff who can speak specifically about his address, that location, and what challenges may exist there.
Yeah, I've had some firsthand experience with that exact situation. I happen to have a hydrant in front of my house. It's centered on the lot. And it's Public Works that takes care of the red curb painting. And two regulations that I can tell you that pertain. One is a 15-foot clearance on either side of the hydrant. That's restricted parking. The second thing is there is a, now I've forgotten what they call it, but there's a no parking restriction, and I believe it's 5 feet on either side of the driveway. So, he could be in a situation where, and then corners have a different consideration.
He's on a corner.
Yeah, okay, so he's probably caught in a convergence of where his driveway is located and that 5-foot box that is going to be red painted and he's going to stuff it. What happened in my case was the entire front of my house is a red curb, no parking at all. That doesn't stop anybody from parking there, and it's quite common for people to park there overnight right in front of the hydrant.
Okay,
Okay,
Tom?
I'll forward him on to Chief White or Chief Senate, but thank you.
very good.
Looks
Tom,
like
how are we celebrating Native
Oh, the
American
Chief Senate has a
Heritage Month?
question, Dr.
Go ahead.
Do you know what street he lives on? Do you know what street he lives on?
Yeah, I don't want to get him in trouble.
No, just, we've got the new parking box program going in on Lincoln Hill. And those aren't red curbs. Those are actual striped boxes where you can park, with the exception of Graceland Drive. We determined that Graceland Drive,
That's where he lives.
yeah, so
I'm
there are
looking up
some
his
new-
address right now.
there are some new red zones. Those were installed in lieu of parking boxes in order to
Yeah,
ensure
it's-
fire apparatus
it's
access. So that was-
68 Graceland,
Yeah, okay.
and he's right on the corner. So essentially nothing he can do. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, we can go up there and discuss it with him, but basically, what we did was in that entire area, we painted parking boxes, but on Graceland Drive, we determined that there was so much parking that could remain that painting boxes would just look ridiculous. There'd just be parking boxes almost the entire way up that street. And so what we did was we found areas that are pinch points that impacted fire access or emergency evacuation. So we either refreshed the existing red zone that was there because a lot of them were faded out to the point where you couldn't see them, or we enlarged some as well. But if he's on the corner, that's probably why it's a pinch point. If there's cars parked there, the fire truck can't get through properly. But we'd be happy to go up and review it again with him. As the chief said, we were up there earlier today, modifying some of the boxes, meeting with residents. So you can give him
I'll
my
mention
name and
that to him
number.
tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks, chief.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chief Senate.
Tom, is there anything else we need to do to celebrate American Native Heritage Month?
Not really. I'm doing a MCLE, or it's a lawyer thing, a continuing education on implicit bias, explicit bias against natives with the county bar. But, there's some good stuff on Xfinity. They have a whole page on Native American Heritage Month and a bunch of movies and documentaries you might want to check out. They're pretty cool.
Okay. Very
Other
good.
than that, no, just
Thank you very
try to
much.
be cognizant of any potential biases you might have, and don't root for the Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
I was
didn't.
so offended at the
I
whole
rooted for
World
Dusty
Series,
Baker, so that's
the
not a
whole
problem.
the tomahawk chop. It's very offensive. So there's a push in the Native community because they're kind of the last one remaining. We got the Redskins to change their name, the Indians changed their name,
Right.
and so we're working on the Braves. We'll see what happens, but anyway,
Okay,
thanks for
good.
asking. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Nadine, anything you'd like to add today?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Sure, Chairman. One of the things that I mentioned to the commission was that, civil or citizen outreach, people are going to be getting cancellations of their homeowners insurance. The chief has been getting calls over that. And so I said, hey, maybe I'll come up with a quick little toolbox if I could share it. Would that be possible?
Yes.
So I came up with this thing. It's just the beginning. I don't know can you see that at all?
Yes.
It should be this screen. It says Community Wildfire Chiefs Toolkit for Homeowners Insurance Insight.
Yes.
And let's say, for example, somebody calls the chief or calls any one of us and says, you know what, Travelers just, Hartford, Nationwide just canceled my insurance. What should I do? And why did it happen to me? And what's the fire commission doing about it? And we could get, I try to keep it simple. I would just share this. I had some peers review it, and it might be a little overkill because I'm in the insurance world. You guys can look at it and say, change this, change that, whatever. We'd have to put some disclaimers on it from the city of San Rafael. It just basically says, hey, this is what's going on with wildfire. And they can Google it too. They're going to find all this information, but it gives us something to say we're not completely ignorant of the situation, and it's out there. This is what's going on with the industry. Here's a little bit of the mitigation modeling. We're doing this in San Rafael, and Firewise is there helping us. By the way, if you did get canceled, this is the California Fair Plan. If you're going to, because that's where they need to go. If you're in the Fair Plan, if you're in there, there's some tips as to how you go about marketing your insurance, understanding the California Fair Plan, how it works, and then because they're going to buy the California Fair Plan, it's a bare bones policy. It gives you no liability insurance. It gives you no loss of rent. So you have to buy what's known as difference in conditions. It's outlined in the description above. Here are the list of same one that you get from the Department of Insurance, but people don't have to hunt around this way. Here are some of the carriers that are offering DIC coverage. And then here's one of the things that's going to confuse people is admitted versus non-admitted. and here's a little cheat sheet on admitted versus non-admitted. And then, hey, once you put your insurance in place, here's a couple of really good websites. Travelers, Liberty Mutual, and the Hartford all have good websites for home safety. So it's a basic little thing. I don't know. I'll share it with you guys, or I'll share it with you, Commissioner, and you can decide, and the chief can decide whether this thing's worth anything or not. So,
Yeah, Ken, I would suggest that that you email copy around this, so we have a chance to read it and digest it before the next meeting.
okay, yeah, it's a start, and I told you guys I put something together, and that's it.
Yeah,
We
looks very
appreciate
good.
it. Yeah, send it to
Thanks for
us
doing
with
that,
the
Ken.
feedback, and then we can attach it to either the Fire Commission website, or maybe Chief White would want it on the Fire Department website. We'll see which most appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ken?
No, just, again, citizen outreach. That's why I'm having this gentleman join us today, Tony Morgan, professional buddy. Hopefully he joins in the next 10 minutes. And
Well, he's here. I
yeah,
see
he'll
him
be here.
online. So we'll get him on as soon as we finish our reports. Dave Funkelrud, anything you'd like to add today?
Just one observation, the Wildfire Watch video series is great. I watched it and I really like the visual element to it. I think it's done in a really positive way. So to the extent that we can promote that through the social channels, Chief, maybe David or Quinn can help with that. I think it's a great resource for the community and entertaining and interesting and just great all around.
Are you referring to the Fire Safe Marin videos that are being produced?
Yeah, I think, is it done through the WPA? It's called Wildfire Watch, I believe.
Yeah, I'm almost sure MWPA is the funding source to assist the Fire Safe Marin folks in developing those videos.
Okay.
Excellent. I don't think I've seen those, Dave, so thanks for pointing them out.
Yeah, maybe we can put the link in the minutes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Let me see if I can. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll pop it into the chat here.
There was also links in previous editions of Hot Shot. If you go back 1 or 2 editions of Hot Shot, it's in there as well.
I think that's where I found it.
That's
Oh,
correct.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Yeah.
Excellent. Dave, thank you. Stan, is there anything you'd like to add today?
A couple of three things, actually. Yesterday, we had a virtual nationwide slowdown of Comcast. I don't know how many of you were affected by it. Certainly I was. And so the question is San Rafael.org and or its entity a standalone? So business went on as normal as far as the fire department was concerned?
I noticed no interruption or slowdown from my
Okay, well,
office.
I guess my question is, and we probably don't know the answer, and that is, in my case, if the department puts something out and I'm receiving on Comcast, I may not have, or I would have gotten it an hour later. So I guess we sort of skipped by the possibility of there being a problem, which then raises the question, what would our backup be if the major system the public depends on failed? And in this case, it started in Philadelphia. So it was a wave coming all the way across. Just something to think about, nothing we have to decide or talk about today. Odd issue, and odd only that there's no mention of those who are not affected by it, and that is the county, the state and the county and individual towns are putting into place bans on the use of small gas-powered devices, lawn blowers, chainsaws, you name it. I am assuming that because of what we do and how we do it, we're immune from any of those kinds of rules and regulations and don't have to look down the road to electrify all of our tools. Does that make sense?
don't know that they've made any provisions for public safety. I think this is going to be universal, so to speak. So there may be a transitional period for public safety personnel, but I think it's going to apply pretty much to everyone with no exceptions.
A budget item.
Excellent.
Okay, and lastly, yesterday, as I said to a neighbor of mine, there's a new kid on the block, and I found it a little interesting. I'll tell you what it is. You choose to look at it or not. Apparently, there's a company that has started with individuals who were formerly with Salesforce, and they are putting out a new search engine called YOU.com. It's going to be a Google chaser. Their idea is to be the next and yet better Google. So if you're interested, you can't buy stock in it, so don't worry. This is not a insider trading idea, but it's. I've looked at it today. I found it fascinating, very different, and go with it if you choose. And that's me.
Okay, Stan, thank you very much. Chief, before we get to your report, I see we have Tony Morgan with us. Tony is a friend and colleague of Mr. Johnson. And as Mr. Johnson has described to us before, that underwriting could get difficult in some parts of the state. It hasn't been a huge issue in Marin County yet about fire risk, wildland urban interfaces. But I understand that Mr. Morgan is an expert on underwriting. And Mr. Morgan, do you want to just take 5 minutes and just address us briefly about the topic?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, so basically what's happening in the state of California is we're seeing a progression where fire insurance is becoming like a commodity, more of a supply and demand situation, which isn't good because insurance companies throw out the arts of underwriting and instead say, well, if you want, $5 million in limits and it costs you X amount of dollars and we don't really care, how you mitigate the risk. Much like earthquake insurance, it's a lot of anything with a catastrophic nature has that supply and demand element. So if you're an underwriter with $100 million capacity, you're going to try to place that with at the highest price because it's a limited, the demand exceeds the supply. So that's a trend I'm kind of seeing. It makes me a little bit nervous seeing that in the fire side. Remember, just a couple years ago, it was all about protection class 1 through 10. If the protection class was under 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Underwriters took that information, underwrote the account. You got a great price. Everyone home very happy. What we're seeing now is we're seeing less of the protection class discussion and more of the wildfire risk score. And I'm talking at this point a bit more about commercial stuff, commercial businesses. So insurance underwriters work with companies like CoreLogic, and CoreLogic comes up with a wildfire risk score between 1 and 100. Obviously, the lower that number, the better the risk is, right? And they determine that score by the slope where the property is located, the fuel in the area, the brush in the area, previous loss history, right? The ability of ambers to go from one place to another, all that kind of stuff's involved in figuring out what the score is. And then once the score is established, the insurance companies then decide whether or not they want to write based upon that score. Now, if the score is between 51 and 60, under 51 is fantastic, but 51 to 60, the score is moderate. 60 to 80 is high, and 81 to 100 is extremely high. And a lot of these insurance companies are saying, hey, anything over 80, we're not interested, or anything over 60, we have no interest in. Okay. When that happens, you create this situation, right, where there's fewer insurance companies chasing the business. Again, that's that supply and demand situation. And you start making insurance more of a commodity priced transaction than what we're typically used to in the insurance world. So how do you mitigate this situation, right? You're an owner, you've done a lot of work around your premises, around your building. You brought people in, you cut trees down, you removed a lot of old growth. You've done everything that's, you should do as a good citizen, right? And you have a couple options. One, you could bring in, you can ask like people like Core Logic, who established a score, to come in and review everything once again, right? And maybe reduce that score. Two, you could bring in an underwriter and say, hey, why don't you come visit my property? Why don't you take a look for yourself what we got going? Let me show you what we've done to this property. That stuff does help, but typically that's going to help for somebody who's got a lot of premium dollars, right? The insurance underwriter may not want to visit an account that's producing $30,000 premium. He'd like to visit an account that's producing maybe a couple $100,000, right? So there lies a problem, right? So what you have to really try to do is work with the folks like Core Logic to come out to your property. Whoever is measuring your fire score, have them come out and say, look,
I don't understand half of what your email said, Kyle.
Continue, Mr. Morgan, sorry.
Okay, no worries. So, if you got to find a way to get somebody like Core Logic to come out, visit your property and find a way to reduce that score to get the insurance companies to give you the proper pricing for your exposure. Now, on the personal line side, which is like individual homes and dwellings and that kind of stuff, our house where we live, I would say, and I noticed this last year, is a lot of people in Marin County tend to work with the same insurance broker on the homeowner side, right? He's a buddy of mine from high school. I've known him for many years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think on the homeowner side, it's very important that people do the following. You work with an independent broker, okay? As you always, maybe you've done the past 10, 15 years. Might be your friend from high school, your colleague, whatever. Maybe it's your brother-in-law. You also go to the captive agents in Marin County. That means the Allstate agent, the State Farm agent, right? The farmer's agent. Okay, these are captive agents. I noticed in the past year or so, by doing that, I was able to find a friend of mine who was able to get his house in Marin County insured by State Farm at a very $20,000 less than what his broker many years had quoted. And he got his house in Lake Tahoe placed with an Allstate agent who was very competitive out of Truckee, California. So I don't do a lot of personal lines. I'm mostly commercial. But from that point of view, I would suggest that you work with an independent agent and you work with those captive agents, because remember, some of these insurance companies at times will use different companies in terms of the fire rating. So Core Logic might be might have a different rating on your property as opposed to ABC or another, third company or fourth company. And since insurance companies tend to work with different scoring agencies, one score might be relatively high, the other score might be relatively low from another insurance carrier. So in the personal line side, you really have to shop around. And in Marin County, there are plenty of captive insurance agents out there to access. And you got to start the process, early, not a month before renewal. I'd say 3 months to 6 months before renewal, just to be able to tap all those resources. And also, there's also a chance on the personal line side, you might be able to get the farmer's agent out to visit the property, or these Allstate agents. These captive agents, because they only work with one company, have a lot of power in convincing their senior management to make exceptions, to review the inspection reports, to look at things differently.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
that's great. Those are good tips. We
yeah.
could probably put the highlights of that together and put it as a link on our website. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank
Did that make sense?
Yes. Any questions from Mr. Morgan? That was very enlightening. Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Okay,
Deeply
thank you.
appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Super. I think it's going to become a bigger problem as global warming and climate change progresses and we have more fires. Hopefully Larry's rain scenario that we've gotten a lot of rain and it's just going to keep up the rest of the year would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
But I don't know that we can count on it.
Well, it's ironic because a couple years ago, if you went to a cocktail party, you mentioned insurance, it was like conversation killer. People are now aware of how important it is. And if you in a sense, it's a fixed cost, right? But if you really do your homework beforehand and you shop around and you talk to different brokers and you find out like, hey, Allstate's doing this or State Farm's doing this, and you do your homework, it really pays off. You can get those prices down. And of course, if you can convince any of them to come out and visit especially if you've done the work, hey, come out, look what I've done. I mean, I took these trees down, I cleaned this up, let them see that. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah. I think as Tom Weathers would tell you, in a criminal case, the defendant personally is never as guilty as the one you've never met.
That's right. Exactly.
So
Fair point.
personalizing it and getting people to see what you've done to make things better is really a great strategy. Thank you
Well
so
said.
much.
Thank you.
Chief Sinnott, do you have a report for us? Chief White, I think, is tied up in another meeting.
Yeah, Chief White jumped over to a meeting with the deputy city manager at 4:30. And he provided me with a copy of his monthly report. Does he provide this to you? Do you get copies of this?
Yes,
Because
yes.
I don't want to read the whole thing to you, because
Good.
it's so
Don't
detailed
read it, Bob. Don't read
and
it.
so extensive that we'd be here till about 6 o'clock.
Bob,
So,
Just
two things.
tell us some stories. Don't read the report.
Yeah. Is there anything urgent you should tell us now? And then you can email us the summary.
well, let me circle back to the parking box program, because this was a tremendous effort that took many months. We started with an informational campaign to the residents in the Lincoln Hill area. And this is the first area, kind of the pilot project of the new parking box ordinance that the city council adopted with the intention of eliminating the bottlenecks in order to facilitate fire apparatus access. And this isn't just for the big fire. This is for the normal day-to-day emergencies that we run all the time. The medical aid calls, the room and contents fires, the vehicle fires, the rescues, things like that. It's to get the fire engine up through the hillside streets without delay due to improperly parked vehicles. So the ordinance was passed by the city council. There was extensive public outreach in the Lincoln Hill neighborhood. And then one really significant thing happened before we actually moved into the neighborhood to install the parking boxes. Using MWPA funds, we went through the entire neighborhood and did basically a street widening by brush removal, canopy clearing, widening effort through all the streets in order to remove the bottlenecks created by vegetation, the overhead clearance problems that might hit the top of the fire trucks. But it also provided us with the opportunity to create as much parking as possible, because that was the objective. The objective is to maintain or create as much parking, proper parking, while still enabling the fire engine to get through. And once the brush removal process was done, we actually walked each street using 2 poles. One pole was 11 feet wide and one pole was 8 feet wide. And we walked along, and as long as those poles didn't overlap, we could create parking. Once they overlapped, that meant we had a pinch point and we would not provide parking in that area. So when it was all said and done, we ended up with these parking boxes with clear signage at the entrances to all of the neighborhood streets, and then at various intersections that clearly state park in designated parking boxes only. And it essentially forces people to park properly rather than park casually like they did before. And what it does is it enables the fire engine just to get it up into the hillside areas. If, heaven forbid, we do have to evacuate an area, it enables people to get out of the area more easily because there aren't improperly parked cars. And then it also helps the residents on a day-to-day basis just move through their neighborhood without having to deal with cars that are parked incorrectly, like on blind corners, things like that. So the benefits are substantial. Once the boxes were installed, we've been back up into the neighborhood to fine tune it. We've met with residents who had questions or concerns or ideas on how to create more parking. And as the chief mentioned, we were just doing that earlier today. So it's a very, I think, a successful program. It's something that I actually implemented in Larkspur right after the Oakland-Berkeley fire disaster in 1991. We did the parking box program on all the hillside streets in Larkspur Corps Madera followed suit, and several other agencies from Southern Marin also did the same thing. So it's a well-established, proven program. It does create some inconvenience. It does take away parking where people maybe were parking, shouldn't have been parking there, but were parking. But the goal, our goal is to have as much parking as possible with enabling the fire engine to get through unimpeded. So the fire truck, engine 51, made multiple trips up to Lincoln Hill with us in order to ensure that once we created a parking box, they could get through. We're off and running. So once Lincoln Hill is finished, we'll move on to another neighborhood in the hillside area and continue to expand this program. So
Very
a
good.
lot of credit goes to MWPA for the funding. A lot of credit goes to Quinn Gardner for basically preparing the staff reports and the ordinance, and to MWPA staff here, our vegetation inspectors who oversaw the brush removal process. And it's amazing how much brush was removed from the roadside areas in Lincoln Hill. Incredible. So not only have we installed this parking box program, but we've greatly improved fire safety levels by removing enormous amounts of flammable vegetation from along the roads and near homes. So that's probably one of the biggest things I wanted to mention here. The other thing too is thank you to Quinn Gardner. We've got the AmeriCorps crew back in San Rafael. I think we've got 8 people, and I'm sure you recall this is, I think, probably the 4th time we've had the AmeriCorps crew here, and their focus is brush removal. And they're out doing various projects that have been identified by our vegetation specialists, prescriptive hillside, fire road clearing, San Rafael open space areas that we feel are in need of attention, and they're out in our community currently. We're getting ready to move forward with the rehabilitation of Station 54 and Station 55, which is very exciting. And we're very grateful to the city and to our community for supporting us with basically what will be the completion of our essential facilities project. Station 54 and 55 will be not completely demolished, but will be significantly demolished and then rebuilt in order to provide modern facilities. As many of you have visited those stations, we've had commission meetings at those stations. You're aware of the fact that they are aged, to say the least. They're long beyond their useful service life. And to get those stations rehabbed is going to be just significant for us all, for the fire department and for the community. When Station 54 is rehabbed, that crew is going to move to Station 52. We're going to take the ambulance, which is at Station 52, and move it to Station 51. The Station 55 crew will move into a modular structure that's already been positioned on the property. So they will stay on site and will provide service from that location while that station is being rehabbed. That work is set to occur right after the first of the year. What we're doing right now is just preparing to relocate the crews, preparing to pack up, determining what's staying and what's going. And we'll be off and running with that. We're really looking forward to that, and looking forward to those new stations, which should be done in early 2023.
I think we ought to thank Nadine for finding the money to do that. So thank you, Nadine.
Definitely. Thank you, Nadine.
Thanks to our community members.
For the
Thanks.
AmeriCorps workers, are they currently in the modular
They are.
facility at 55? Okay.
They are. So
where are they going to go after that, or is that the end of their term?
They will be completing their tour just about when we need to move the firefighters in. So it actually is all good timing. The chief mentioned the promotions of Engineer William Berkey to the rank of captain. And firefighter paramedic Jacob Santos was promoted to the rank of fire engineer. That's very exciting. He provided some bios on the recruits that are currently at the Recruit Academy at Station 52, which is currently underway under the guidance of Captain Nick Juicy. And let's see, is there anything else here that I should be reporting on? I think that covers most of the chief's report that he had prepared for us, and just a few items that I added as well. Any
Okay.
questions or any comments I can take back to the chief?
Okay,
Good
thank you,
report.
Chief Sinnott.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Deeply
Great to be here.
appreciate it. I have two more announcements before I forget. You all should have gotten an invitation to December 7th, Boards and Commissions Soiree. Nadine, that's going to be at City Hall, correct? And be there in that area. So that's always kind of get together we will have had since COVID started, at least for the Fire Commission. So 7th, 4 to 6. And I did forget to tell you, actually related to the Fire Foundation and the firefighters, a 4th grade class at Glenwood Elementary School held a bake sale fundraiser on behalf of Station 55. The firefighters at 55 went out there and did something at the school. So they raised $395 and they gave it to BC Hatfield, who transferred it to Jack Devlin, and he banked the funds, and the students wanted the funds to benefit Station 55. So Jack added 3 gift cards at Andy's Market for the 3 shifts at Station 55, and the Fire Foundation contributed $200, and the kids raised $400. So that was a total of $600. That's going to go to Mrs. Ryan's class, and we're going to have a little certificate made for them too. And so that's just FYI, and firefighters participating in the community with young kids and reminding them to come back when they're 21 to finish their firefighter studies. Okay, anything from anyone?
When do you think we might meet in person again?
Great question, Tom. I thought it would be by now. I hope it's by January, but I don't know. Nadine, do you have any inside information?
I think the goal is January or February, but we're waiting to see what we hear from the county and other agencies. But
Yeah.
we are also anxious to get back.
Yeah.
Nadine, is the County Board of Supervisors now meeting in person?
No, I didn't think they were.
I was told they were,
Hmm.
because I sit on the County Assessment Appeals Board.
I think they're doing a
So
hybrid.
we're thinking of starting our sessions in person again, maybe next month. And that the county board had already started in person, I think in October.
Yeah.
Maybe I misheard.
Chief Sinnott, do you have any inside information?
I recently heard they're doing a hybrid, allowing a very limited number of people in, but mainly Zoom.
Yeah,
But January is fine. No rush.
Yeah, we're a small group. I think we're all vaccinated. There's never a zero risk, but I'm willing to take it. So we'll see what happens. And I do hope to see you at the Boards and Commissions soiree in December. So thank you very much. Lots of interesting stuff today. And Stan, you have your work cut out for you.
I do indeed.
And I want quotes from Shakespeare and things like that as part of it.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everybody.
thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Everybody.
Take care.
Adios.
All right.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Giving.